We're back on the early edge here on CBS Sports Network, and I am joined by Claudia Bellofatto and Emory Hunt to break down some NFL teams. We're going to start with the Commanders, folks, and then we're going to go to the Miami Dolphins. And just to set the stage here, I've lived in both of those places for about 20 years, so I'm very excited to talk about these two teams in particular. We're going to start with the Commanders. Their win odds, 9.5, the over, -120 here at BetMGM, the under, even money. Claudia, I start with you. I just mentioned that I'm a Washington Commanders fan, so please let me down easy. Do you like the under or the over here?
I was going to say, our first show together, I'm fading your squad. It's a lean. It's not a full go, but I do lean under, and you're getting even money, so decent value there. It's really schedule-based. It's a big jump from the line they set at 6.5 last year, and I know they soared past it. I know the offense excelled. I think the defense did better than they probably should have. But when you look at those wins, they were tight, guys. They were 8-1 in games decided by a touchdown or less. And that was what the schedule considered the second easiest in the league. This year, they have the 8th hardest. They have 5 primetime, 10 national. And I know Jaden Daniels, I'm a huge fan of Jaden Daniels. He had an incredible rookie season. I know they beefed up the O-line. They brought in Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Josh Connerly Jr., it sounds like, is ready to go at right tackle. But with almost every second-year quarterback, we have to expect some negative regression. And regardless of how good the offense is, the defense still has a lot of questions, and you can't win games without stopping the other team from scoring points. You got to look at how old this roster is, too, the oldest starting roster in the NFL. I just look at 9.5 and think that 10 wins is going to be tough when you look at the offenses they're going to be facing. Last year, they had just 1 win in 5 matches against playoff teams, and that 1 win was against the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts got hurt, and they gave up a double-digit lead. So for all of those reasons, schedule-wise being a big one, though, I'd lean under.
Emory, Claudia came to the show. She's wearing Washington colors. I thought she was taking the over. She has really let me down here. Can we not? I mean, listen, those were really compelling arguments, I have to admit. Are we on the over or the under, Emory?
I'm going to take the over. For one part of what Claudia talked about is the reason why I like them going over and then like them winning 10 games. She talked about their record in those close matchups. But what that does is builds up those calluses to go back to. It's like, hey, man, we've been down before. We've been in these tight game situations before. We know how to navigate through that and come out on the other side. You add that component with the fact you have a second-year quarterback, and then they got better on offense. I think defensively, the secondary I'm most excited about. There's still some questions like she talked about with them along the defensive line, some moving parts. But I feel like this team alone, with what we saw last year, how they found ways to win games, what they have at quarterback, what they have at receiver, and now a revamped offensive line, 10 wins is definitely doable. I'm slightly going over, but I like the 10-win number as the exact number for Washington.
Very interesting stuff. I mean, I will say this. I think the range of outcomes, and it's because of some of those close games and because their defense, I think, is going to be hit or miss. I think the range of outcomes is actually pretty wide for Washington. And frankly, as a Washington fan, I'm not disappointed in that because the fact that they have some major upside is all I really care about at this point. All right, let's talk about the NFC East. Washington is plus 225 to win the NFC East. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are the number 1 seed there. Emory, I'm going to start with you. Any value in betting that plus 225, or are we just kind of conceding this to the Eagles?
I think you have to concede this to Philadelphia. And when you look at Washington and to some of the points that Claudia brought up, the close games, right? One in particular, the Giants, they seem for whatever reason to always play the Giants close. So this division, as with every other division in the NFL, has gotten better. The Giants are going to be a tough out. Dallas is going to be back. And we know what we're talking about with the Eagles. So finishing second is totally fine. But going a step further and say they're going to finish number 1 over Philly and how deep the Eagles are on both offense and defense, it's a bridge too far for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bridge too far for me, and I'm as subjective as you can get on this issue. Claudia, is it a bridge too far for you?
Emory, what do you mean Dallas is going to be back? I don't know if we have to worry about Dallas too much. I will say when you look at the odds, though, there's so much disrespect when it comes to the Giants, which I know we'll talk about later on. Cowboys, I think they had a disappointing offseason, questionable coaching change. I'm not too worried about them. But you're totally right, Emory, when it comes to the Eagles. And also, you consider the fact that the NFC East hasn't had a repeat winner in over 21 years, this Eagles team and how they're constructed would be the team to break that trend. They're returning with almost their entire roster. The defense slightly different. They lost some guys like Josh Sweat, Milton Williams. As a Pats fan, I'm happy about that one. But so much talent remains. They used their first 5 draft picks on defenders. They remain a top defense in the NFL, which to this point, I think the Commanders can't say for themselves. That being said, when it comes to the odds, the Eagles' implied probability with their odds over 57%, if you're looking at that minus 135, does mean there is some value with the Commanders if you think there's enough upside with them.
All right, fair enough. We got at least a lukewarm like on the plus 225, but I think we all think the Eagles are going to win the NFC East. Let's talk about maybe some of that upside that I was talking about. Let's get into maybe a playoff Super Bowl conversation. Washington top 5 to win the NFC. I guess my question here is that number too high? Claudia, I'm going to start with you. It starts off with the Eagles, Lions, and 49ers. I guess that all makes sense. Then we get to the Commanders, Rams, and then the Packers, and then a bit of a drop-off to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Vikings from there. Do you think they deserve that top 5 billing?
I don't agree with the pricing here. I think this team should 100% be taken seriously, but the NFC was busy this offseason, so it's hard for me to say confidently they should be in that top 5. You mentioned some of those names. The Vikings, I think, should be ahead of them. They added even more to their star-studded roster. They have so much talent on offense, but they were also a top 5 defense last season. The Packers have a ton of weapons on offense. The Bucs even, you add Emeka Egbuka to an already stacked receiver room. Defense a bit of an issue there, but you talk Bears, you talk Seahawks now, Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, they could be surprising. So it's hard for me to say they should certainly be in that top 5. I would say closer to top 6, top 7. Not to give so much hate to the Washington Commanders, but I do think the NFC was busy in the offseason, and that makes the difference.
Emory, I'm really looking forward to these profiles because Claudia did mention the Giants, who I know you like. The Vikings, I think, are such an interesting team from an upside and range of outcome standpoint. Talk to me about this sort of top 5 billing for the Commanders, though.
I think it's fair. You got to take these guys seriously. You look at the second team on that list of odds. We sat down as a country and watched Washington take it to Detroit in the postseason. So they have a puncher's chance. When you have a quarterback like Jayden Daniels, you always are going to have a shot to win it. And when you're thinking about Washington and what, let's say if we want to go back to history and see what can we pull from a historical reference to bring to the present, how about Seattle? When they had Russell Wilson as a rookie, they went to Washington. They lost that ball game, I believe. And then they come back the next year and win the Super Bowl. So this is possible for Washington, but we're talking about an NFC that has Philadelphia. Don't sleep on the Bears and what they have put together this offseason as well. So there's a lot more teams in the mix, but hey, they have the one piece you need to have a puncher's chance, and that's the quarterback. And when you look at San Francisco, no one fears them anymore. We saw Washington, what they did to Detroit. So yes, this is a fair number, and you have to take the Commanders seriously.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I think the Rams are a team to be taken seriously as well, and certainly the odds sort of reflect that as well. All right, let's fast forward a little bit to week 1. We got about a minute left in the segment, and then we're going to cover the Dolphins in the same capacity here. Washington, a 7-point favorite against the Giants with a total of 46.5. Claudia, give me maybe 20 or 30 seconds on what you think of this line.
I don't think any team's good enough to cover 7 in week 1, so I'd either take the points or tease Washington down closer to a pick'em. This is going to be a very good test for that revamped O-line. Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Thibodeau, a healthy Dexter Lawrence, solid secondary. It's going to be a good competition, so I definitely wouldn't lay the 7. If anything, I'd tease it down or take the points.
Emory, I wanted to make sure we closed this segment with you being able to talk about the New York Giants against my Washington Commanders. 7 points is a lot. I don't care how good you think the Washington Commanders are. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, we saw them go to Washington, and Washington won by kicking, 25 field goals that game? The Giants on the money line here. I like the Giants to pull off the win here. There's always a week 1 upset because Claudia touched on it perfectly. It's essentially extension of the preseason in week 1. The Giants match up well defensively versus this revamped offensive line. And when you have a quarterback of Russell Wilson and or Jameis Winston, you raise the floor. And I think this offense will be a lot better this season. So this is the game where I think they catch the Commanders. So I'm taking them on the money line.
Emory, we were doing so well here. You were on my side. We were vibing. Claudia was the villain. Now, what? Wow,
Thank you,
what a
Emory.
character
Come to the
turn.
dark side.
Yeah, Claudia, I'm on your side now. Emory, I don't appreciate that money line stuff, but fair enough. I appreciate the argument.